Welcome to Awakening, the podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christian Strang, and today we are bringing you a very special episode with a very special guest. I am thrilled to introduce to the Awakening the Podcast community, Tiffani Barnum. Tiffani has been a counselor and holistic coach for over 20 years. She holds sacred space in a variety of ways, from private one-to-one sessions to large-scale group experiences and events. She holds a bachelor's degree in biology and a master's degree in counseling and education, as well as several certifications in spiritual teaching and metaphysical healing. She brings a depth and breadth of personal and professional experience to her work and lives by the same principles that she teaches. She is also a leader of ecstatic and sacred dance journeys, a highly skilled event organizer, seasoned community leader, and artist. And I have known Tiffani now since I think it is 2012 was when we met. And I am so thrilled to welcome you to the podcast today, Tiffani.
Oh, I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you for that. And it's been since 2010.
Oh my,
It's been, I know, just so long.
so amazing that we've gotten to walk this journey of expansion and enlightenment and all the things. Oh, it's when I think about 2010 and who we were in 2010, look at us now.
Ages
Incredible.
ago, ages
Yes,
ago.
yes, so many lifetimes ago. And I know we've walked many lifetimes previous to this together. I am thrilled to have you here and have this conversation about awakening, which you know I am very passionate about. And also spreading the message that awakening is not a one-time experience. You know, when I had my first awakening in 2008, I was like, okay, good. I got it. I'm done, but then came 2014 and then came 2020 and then came 2023, and the awakenings that come every day, right? That aren't necessarily even big and dramatic, but are those epiphanies and that like realization that totally alters the course of our life. I love hearing these stories, sharing them with others, and really expanding our vantage point on awakening. So I'd love to hear, Tiffani, from you about one or as many as you'd like to share of your awakening stories that are really captivating your attention at this time.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I'm with you on that. Like it's an ongoing journey of continuing to awaken, the
Okay.
awakening process. Um, but probably one of the most prominent ones in my life, in this life, um, was when I was 15 or 16. And that's been coming back around for me lately, of just remembering that moment. And so, I mean, a little context, I left home when I was 15. I was raised by my grandparents. I left to go live with my great aunt and uncles because I was called. That was also probably another awakening moment in my life, if I'm honest about that. Um, to because I just knew I needed to be somewhere else. I needed to do something different and change a pattern. And I just remember so clearly, after being in their home for several months, I went from a place of chaos to a place just Southern California to Marin County, just different lifestyles, and to suddenly being an only child in a lot of ways. And I remember just laying in my bed, in my bedroom, in this house that was so huge. I had a view of the bay and like the Richmond San Rafael Bridge in the Bay Area. Like I didn't feel like I belonged there, but I knew I'd been called there. And I just remember one night laying in bed, not even knowing who I was talking to. And I've always been a spiritual being, not always having the words for it, but lying there having this like discussion or begging God, source, whoever was listening. I was like, look, just take me out of this world.
Mm.
And I know you've shared your awakening story about begging to live. I was begging to not live
Mm.
because I was like, look, I did the thing. I left home. I'm here. And this is terrible. I just was so miserable. And I just didn't know. I didn't have the tools. I didn't, thinking back to 15-year-old me to now 40-year-old me, I'm like, wow, yeah, I had no context for what living spirit led was, but I even as a child had this like knowing or this pull or this call And I remember just being so like, I don't get what I'm supposed to do here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I just was so, most teenagers are miserable. That wasn't an exception for me either. But also given all the things, lots of trauma and addictive stuff and abuse from childhood to like this new way of living, and I didn't know what to do with it. And so I just was like, look, just please make it easy. I was like, I don't want it to be hard on anyone, right? Even in that, like, I'm
Mhm.
done with this, but like, please don't make it hard on anyone else that I love. Just, I don't want to wake up. And
Mm.
I didn't do anything. I didn't take any like action. I hadn't taken any substances or anything, but I was just like, let me just not be here. But
Mm.
there was even a moment in that, and I remember laying in my bed, like staring at the Christmas lights that I had strung up in my room, and was like, but if I wake up, just you gotta tell me, show me, guide me, because I am lost and
Mm.
clueless.
Mm.
Um, and it just was that moment of like, I woke up the next morning, was like, okay, I guess I have something to do.
Wow.
And I didn't know what it was
Mm.
necessarily, but I was like, okay, I woke up and I'll do whatever it takes. But I was surrendered in a way. I think now I can say that. I don't know if in the moment I knew that, of just showing up and saying, okay, show me, guide me. If I can leave home and do this and feel this miserable, it can only get better, right?
And it did.
Hopefully, and it
And look how
did.
good it got.
Right. So that was I mean, and even then I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing or who I'm talking to or what this is or why I feel like I need to have this like moment of just begging
Mm.
for something different. And I'm really grateful that I woke up,
Mm. I'm so
literally, and
grateful. Yes.
all the ways.
Yes. And did you ever then from that point on, were you ever contemplating like, I don't want to be here again after that? Or did that really shift it for you? Like, okay, I woke up. I guess I'm supposed to be here.
Hmm. Yeah, there've been moments, and I think you and I maybe talked about this because in this awakening journey, this eternal journey, we go through all these different death points.
Yes. Yes, we
And
do.
so in my journey, I've had moments where just whatever the feeling or whatever I'm working through has brought up this like sense of I don't want to live.
Mm.
And it takes me back to that moment and what the expansion for me, especially in more recent years, when I hit those points, which are rare, but it's not that I don't want to live, but I don't want to live like this.
Yes. There you
And
go.
that's the clue when I'm like, okay, there's something that needs shifting. This is a choice point, or this is maybe a big one, right? Like we have those
Yes.
tiny moments every day, maybe, but the big ones where it's like, ooh, this is asking me to literally die in
Yes.
some form, or there's a big shift or a way of being or a pattern or an old version of myself that is ready to be, well, retired is how I like to think of it these days.
So good. And I love that the conversation is going here because I don't know that we've ever talked about this publicly. And these death points are a very real part of the awakening journey. And I love that your 15-year-old self, even in, you know, all the ways that we are when we're 15, right? Especially when we've gone through trauma, but even not, like you said, being 15 is its own special thing. But the fact that you could wake up and say, okay, there must be something I'm here to do. And then when the next death point came, you didn't immediately collapse into, some kind of substance use, or, we see folks do that because there's
Mhm.
a misunderstanding of that there are these death points, and it is the death of the old self, it's death of the old life, it's death of the old trauma. I mean, there are so many various death points that we go through in a lifetime, right? So
Yeah.
when people take that literally, and I've worked with clients over the years, as I'm sure you have, where they're like, I don't know what's going on, I feel like I want to die. I'm like, a part of you is dying. That's what's happening. And then they're like, oh, that makes so much more sense. Like, I
Right.
know what's going on with me. I have had those moments throughout my journey. I remember 2016 going out to the beach and just being like, I'm
Mm,
dying in some way, like some part of me is dying, and just being so present to that sense of death without buying into the drama of, oh, I have to do something about it. It is a natural evolutionary occurrence. So
yeah.
I love that we're talking about this and hopefully normalizing it for listeners that have those experiences, that like you're going to have so many death birth cycles in one incarnation if you're doing this thing right.
Yes.
And that is how it's designed to be. And like you shared in your story, Tiffani, which I love so much, that even at 15, being like, okay, I'm still here. There's more for me to do. And that's exactly right. The old self dies, and now there's a whole other path that emerges for us.
Yeah. Well, and it's part of that is just again, like you said, normalizing because I mean, especially in our mainstream Western culture, we're not very good at death.
Oh, we're so bad
Um,
at it.
or
Seriously.
or even underneath that, the grieving process
Yes. So,
of when we come to that realization of the death or the transition, right? And the shifting and the graduating into whatever's next, we also have to feel the feelings
yes.
and
Yes.
be so present with what comes with it instead of trying to avoid or numb. And we've all done it. I mean, it's tricky, it's challenging, it's
Mhm.
painful, and
Mhm.
also part of what we came here to experience.
That's right. Yes.
There's such a focus on like, especially this time of year as we're recording this, is like holidays, the holy days, and happy and cheerful all the time. And I'm like, that is not reality.
Mhm.
And it's okay. It's okay to not feel amazing all the time.
Mhm. And it's okay to, like you said, I pulled out this quote when you were speaking. I don't get what I'm supposed to do here. It's okay to have those moments
Mhm.
or periods in your life when you're like, what am I doing on earth? What is happening here? I know we've all had
Right.
those moments. And again,
Mhm.
that's baked into the cake of the experience. It doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means you're in a death birth cycle. And what is so important to remember is that if you're here in a body, you have something special and unique to do. You have an assignment. And maybe for some of us, I know Tiffani, you and I are raising our hands, may have many assignments,
Right.
right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so you just know that if you're here, you have work to do, you have an assignment, you have a mission that's important. And it's okay if you have those moments of,
Mm.
I don't even get what I'm supposed to be doing here right now.
Yeah. Well, and especially and I know you've experienced this and I have too, and probably many folks listening to this podcast is we live lifetimes in this incarnation.
Yes.
And so, there's real big shifts and like, okay, we've graduated, we're on to the next, and there is that point of unknown,
Yes.
and which can be terrifying, especially
Yeah.
when our humanness wants to know all the things and have all the information. But there is such a grace and a surrender to the unknown because it's not all scary stuff. There's beautiful,
Mhm.
amazing things in the unknown
Mhm.
that we have yet to even experience. I'm excited when I'm
Yes.
now I can say that now.
Yes.
At 15 I would have not been very excited, but but to be like, I can't even imagine. Like,
Mhm.
what else is even possible, especially if it's
Yes.
like only getting better, if it's been so good to this point, how does it get even better?
Yes. Oh, I love that. That's the question to ask. I'm writing this down. How does it get even better? Listeners, this is the question to ask yourself when you're in a death birth cycle or when you're in any cycle. How can it get even better? Because for those of us that have been on this journey for quite some time, right? We're talking decades, multiple decades of
Mhm.
being on a spirit led path. It gets better and better and better and better. And we can ask ourselves, instead of what's happening? Why am I here? What's going on? We can
Mhm.
ask, how can it get even better than it's been right now? I feel like that is such like when you just say that question, do you feel like it opens all these possibilities?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the expansion point, right?
Yes,
Because that's really what it is. And that's really even what a healing journey is just expanding. And it's
that's right.
not not even less painful, but we expand into greater capacity
Mm,
to hold and experience the joy. It's not just the pain, but even greater levels of joy, which has also been my challenge where I'm like, I know how to do the hard stuff. I
yeah.
was really uncomfortable with the joy, because that was the most vulnerable place to be
Oh, I love
growing up.
that you're bringing this in. Yes,
Yeah.
continue. Sorry.
Oh no. Yeah, and just it's not even that like things get easier. There's more ease, hopefully.
Yeah.
But we also just we become more skilled and more seasoned and more experienced of like, oh, okay, this is a death cycle. So we don't panic and go to survival mode
Yes.
or whatever the story or pattern or program
Yeah.
is, and can learn to relax into. And I talk about this quite a lot in my community, especially with the sacred dance journeys, grief
Mm,
and the ecstasy of grief,
mm,
because it's nothing to hide from or be
mm.
ashamed of. Or again, it's also a learning and expansion into how to hold it and be with it and not just try to escape it. Because grief is a grief is one of my constant dance partners. And not in like all day, every
I
day
love that.
wallowing in it,
Yeah.
but in a like, okay, you're here for a dance. Let's do it.
Mm,
Instead of trying to like lock grief out of the house.
yeah. Because
But
we came to experience all the emotions, all of them.
yes, yes.
Grief being one of them. So I love that you do that work because, as you mentioned, humans are so weird. And I talked about this in I think in the December podcast episode, like humans are so weird about death and grief. And the more we can talk about it openly, like we're having this conversation today, that, like, yes, if you're in a body, you're going to have moments where you're like, I don't want to be here. This isn't working for me. And we can normalize that as opposed to like, oh, something's wrong. You're having a mental health crisis. No, you're in a body. Okay.
Mhm.
We're all in that. Now, what do you do with that?
Mhm.
Is the next big question. So I love that you're doing that work around grief with those you serve because it so needs to, like, it's such a heart opener, right? My experience of grief has been like
Yes.
just opening my heart. If I will just let it, it's the no, this can't be here that constricts it. Right.
Yes.
But if you let yourself feel that grief, I believe you said it's like an ecstatic experience. And you're right. You're
Mhm.
absolutely right.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's it. It's the expansion into just the surrender to, and it won't last forever. I
No.
think that's the thing we get stuck in where we're like, oh, this is just going to go on and on, but we know everything is temporary and
Hmm.
it shifts. And that's the beautiful part. I talk about dance all the time because that's part of my work is the dance of
Mm,
moving from grief into joy and experiencing it and like the tenderness of it and to be so fully present to it,
yeah.
because you're right, like you said, we came to experience all of it,
Yes.
and it makes it all that much sweeter when we have those joyful moments and even those tender moments of grief or sadness, because it is just the full range of what we came here to do and experience.
Mm, so good. And you also brought in something here that I really want to highlight because I feel like this is so true for so many, that you felt your most vulnerable place to be was in allowing yourself to experience greater and greater levels of joy.
Mm.
And I feel like that is so true for so many of us that it's like, oh, yeah, especially when we've had early childhood trauma and we've been through a lot. Please put us in a crisis. We will rock it like no
Right.
other. You know what I mean? Like
Uh-huh.
I am my most calm. I'm like, people around me are like, how are you doing that? I just went through some major big shifts in my life and things are just falling apart. And I'm like, the calm in the storm. Because please,
Right.
with the childhoods that we had, this is like old hat, no problem, right? But
Yep.
can you allow yourself to experience the greatest levels of joy, right? So when you said, I wrote that down, that's like my most vulnerable place to be. I really felt that. And I'm curious how many of those listening also feel that. Like, do you realize that as much as there is a depth to the grief or the sadness or the despair, that there is limitless, unlimited experiences of joy that are here for us as well? And can we allow ourselves to
Yeah.
experience more and more and more and more joy? And can we allow ourselves to experience it on the other side of grief? You know,
Mm.
I've had those experiences of like deep grief, I'm crying, it's pouring through me. And then, you know, the blue jay comes up to me and I'm just in absolute awe and joy, right? Can we, in Chinese medicine, joy, sadness go together? You know,
Mm.
so can we allow ourselves to have the full spectrum of emotion? Because I think so many who do healing work can really get stuck in the trauma and get stuck
Right.
in those, and they're like, well, I'm a master at the shadow, but be a master of the light as well. That's the
Yes.
invitation. And that's often, like you said, a scary place to go when you're not familiar with it.
Yeah. Well, when we're attuned to a place of, trauma, drama, I mean,
Yes.
we humans love our drama.
We sure do.
But I think that's one of the things too, and what I love about the work that I do with others, and even just my own healing journey and experiences, the shadow work, it's real popular, but
Trending
it's
right
important.
now.
It is important. We have to go there.
Yes.
And moving into and digging, well, I don't digging, but like moving with the what's unconscious, those
Mhm.
patterns that kind of run the show.
Mhm.
Um, but it's not even just about that, but within that shadow work is also where we've hidden our light. And so
Mhm.
it can be scary to be like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to find there, especially if we've had a lot of trauma, whether lived experienced or even just like things we've taken on from other places or spaces or
Mhm.
what is happening in the world at any given time. Um, and it's less so. I've said this before in other arenas where it's less about being afraid of failing, right? Or even afraid of the shadow, but I think there's a real fear of our own light. And I know I've experienced that and being afraid to be seen.
Mm.
um Not only for like the cringy parts, right? and the hard parts are the ones that we are told are unlovable, but
Mm.
to also be seen for our greatest gifts and the light that we all have and how that gets hidden because it is scary because we've maybe experienced some negative things or challenging things when we've tried to show up in that light in places, especially as children, and have it not received well.
Mhm. Mhm. And
But
that's it.
that's it.
Yeah, that's it right there. That why are we afraid of our light?
Mhm.
Because, well, we've probably been taken out for it in other
Right.
incarnations. In
Right.
this incarnation, losing friends. I mean, this is a thing you see again and again when there are actual healers. You know, even today, like I could not say, like, the regulating agencies, if you said these superfoods healed this disease, they
Mm.
would say, oh no, you're in trouble for that, right? And this is how it's always been. If someone's
Mhm.
actually healing others, they come for them, you know? So like, of course, it's the same with the energy healing modality that I utilize, the empath. Like, we can show, we have anecdotal evidence that
Right.
humans shift out of dis-ease when they experience these modalities. But if you were to go on a broad scale and say this cures this disease and this disease and this disease, the matrix would come for you. So of course, we have fear around that. And yet, of course, claiming, owning, and shining our light is exactly what we have to do when we're here to fulfill our mission and our destiny.
Yeah. Well, and to keep moving forward, right? That's the journey.
Yes.
We get stuck in the cycles, and we've all
Yes.
been there. I've been there where I'm like, I'm just gonna swirl around this same pattern.
Mm.
But there comes a point, right, in the awakening journey where we're just like, no,
Yeah,
no more of this.
that's
And
right.
shifting into the yes, really is like,
That's
yes,
right.
I'm gonna show up. And Yeah, and the advanced technologies, and not just like, when we think of technology, we think of computery things, but the spiritual
That's
technologies
right.
and the modalities like the empath that I use with my clients, I use personally, I've used with you as my mentor and one of my guides on this journey. I can't even believe how much shifts in one session with some of
Right.
these things.
Yeah.
And to be able to show up and say, hey, and it's not, even as healers, as we're, quote unquote, healing others, we're just sharing
Hmm.
and creating the space for others to liberate and be empowered, right? That's my work, is empowering others to live really bold
Yes.
and liberated lives. Because at one point I was just like, I am tired of
Mm.
this victim game. And I am
Yes.
tired of being like, oh, someone else said, or this thing, and I can't, and whatever the stories are. And I've shared with you recently, where there's been a point in the last several months where I'm like, I literally cannot show up as anything less than
That's right.
my full self right now.
That's right. Yeah.
Even at Halloween, I tried to put on a costume and I couldn't do it,
Yeah.
even for
Yeah.
funsies. I was like,
Yeah.
nope, nope, I can't even fake it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's bold work. There's
Mm.
a lot there. And also, it is the most fun and joyful place I've ever been, even in the depths of like, what am I doing right now? Or grieving this old piece of my life, or the things that have come up. There's also a lot of joy to be found at the same time, not even on the other side of it, but even with it.
Mm. Could not agree with you more. And I actually love those points where we try to do things we used to do. And like like physically, like you said, you tried to put on the costume. You're like, I literally cannot even put it on. It's like one of my favorite parts of the evolution of this life is discovering those things, like we're like, oh yeah, no, this is how I respond in this situation. And then you literally cannot. And I would say that's one of the biggest gifts that the empath has given me personally is I
Mm,
just had this moment right before coming into this interview where people around me are emotionally reacting to things. I'm noticing like how emotionally
mhm.
reactive humans are. Like they're
Yeah.
so reactive. And I was like, I used to be like that too, but I'm not anymore. Like I literally just don't even have that experience. It doesn't even occur to me to go there anymore.
Mhm.
And I know that's a direct result of all the work we've done with the empath
Oh,
and
yeah.
the SG and like, these advanced modalities we've been brought by Mary Magdalene and Yeshua and the goddesses of the highest light. It's so cool to have that experience and to recognize your own growth. Because I mean, like we're so intimate with our experience and so our own individual experience. So when we can see how we've
Mm,
shifted, right?
mhm.
Because like with you, Tiffani, and we're looking at we've known each other since 2010. Like I am like bowing down to you, seeing how much you have grown and expanded and become more of who you really are. Like it is
Mm.
stunning to witness. It makes me so happy to see. And then for you to be inside of you and see it, it's like
Yeah.
so much fun and so
Yeah.
rich.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, and that's the fun part, right? Like that's what we came here
Yeah.
for, is
Yeah.
to continue that. And I'm so grateful, right, that we chose to swirl together in this life again, because I know we've done it probably many, many times.
Yes.
And to honor our own growth, but and to witness it for others. Like what a joy and an honor to do
Yeah.
that. And again, just creating the space in the container for others to do the same,
Mhm.
if they choose, right? We have to choose.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And that's what we're doing right here today. And that's what you do in your work, Tiffani, and then I do in my work is that we give folks the opportunity to choose the light. So every time we make an offer, every time we have a conversation like this, we're just opening the space for more souls to choose the highest light. We're just giving opportunities, and that's all we can do. And then everyone has to use their free will to say yes, to choose the light. I mean, that's part of the journey here. And you talked about, finding the light within the shadow, and how, the fourth dimension is, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs right now about the shadow work. But how cool that we got there as a collective, right? Because for many years, people just stuffed the shadow.
Right.
So amazing. It's trending, cool. And even when the trend subsides, we want to keep taking it to new levels of light. So I'm just so grateful that we are on this journey together, and so grateful for you in doing this amazing work. I would love to hear what's really lighting you up these days when it comes to co-creating the golden age in your own life. We talk about this, and again, you and I have been on this journey together. We're creating the golden age in our individual lives in the here and now. We're not waiting for it to happen collectively.
Right.
And knowing that as we each individually create the golden age, we are supporting the collective shift into the next golden age. So I'd love to hear what's lighting you up around that in your own life now, and any invitations or recommendations you have for listeners as well.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, I mean, it's so true. We don't have to wait. We get
No.
to create it at whatever level is available. And really, it's one of those things that is, I was sharing this. I had this photo shoot recently, and this is part of just my personal practice, and I highly recommend it to everyone.
Yes.
Go have a photo shoot at least once a year,
Yes.
if not more. Find
Yes.
someone who feels really aligned. And whether you share the photos or not, it's really about one, practicing being seen,
Hmm.
and then being able to see yourself.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's always the experience, because there are photos where I'm like, ooh, nope. Not that there's anything wrong, but even just being able to, like, the art and the practice of seeing ourselves and showing up from that place,
Yes.
and then giving our gifts, right? And not being afraid to be like, I mean, for years, I mean, it was only probably in the last year that I've been able to say, I'm an energy healer and worker, because
Hmm.
my like fancy master's degree and all of my like
Hmm.
professional training would be like, what are you even talking about? And to embrace that in a way. And so, the ways I'm doing that personally is like, I'm living by the practices that I share with others. I get photo shoots. I dance naked in front of the mirror. Some days it goes better than others, right? And still showing up even when it's hard or weird or whatever.
Hmm.
And so a lot of that is through, my own personal healing and expansion, dancing, like embodiment, like getting into the body, because there's so much, right? Especially in the spiritual community and the 5D and all of this, like being kind of out in the ethers. You can't see me, I'm using my hands, but out here somewhere in the spirit realms. But really the real key is bringing it back into the body,
Yes.
because we came here to be in the body. If we
Hmm.
were going to stay in the ethers, we wouldn't have incarnated into these amazing, gorgeous, like, vehicles, this advanced technology that we get to move and eat and experience things, both pleasure and pain, but there's such a spectrum. And so really, even that's still part of my journey. Like, there's no perfection in any of this, but it's literally the dance, right? Two steps forward, one step back. Sometimes you stumble, sometimes it's part of it. And sometimes when you fall on the floor, that's exactly where you need to be.
Hmm. So I want to pull this out, Tiffany, because this is so good. This is maybe some of my favorite recommendations for how to live in the golden age. So first
Okay.
of all, get a photo shoot. I'm telling you, we
Okay.
did that with our hot goddess summer ladies, and no one did it except for like Tiffany and me.
Oh, no. Do
So
it. Do
get
it.
a photo shoot. It is so empowering and such a learning experience, like you said, Tiffany, because there are those photos that we all see and we're like, no, I do not look like that. No, that is not happening. And then having the photos where we're like, oh, I am a goddess. Look at me.
Right. When it's both sides, there are ones that I'm like, wow, is that me? That
Yeah.
is me. And
Yeah.
there's also the ones where I'm like, yeah, okay, that's going in a drawer. But that's okay. There's learning from all of it, and just
Yes.
embracing all of it.
I love it. So get a photo shoot, dance naked in front of the mirror, people.
Ah,
Yes, yes,
yes.
yes. This is how you create your golden age, being in your body, appreciating your body, honoring your body. Like, get the photo shoot and then be one of those people where you walk into their home and then there's this beautiful, huge photo of you on the wall, or, do
Mm,
something to honor your photo shoot. Put it in an album that you have in a special place, or, get a photo collage and put it up on your wall. Like, honor this incredible body that you're in. The other
yes.
thing you said, Tiffani, that I love is you said, walk the talk, live your spiritual practices. So
Yeah.
for those that are healers that are listening to this, which I would say is almost like 100% of those that I serve in my audience, like whatever it is that you're encouraging others to do, make sure you are living those practices. Then there's no gaps in your consciousness. You're not creating
Mhm.
negative karma for yourself, right? There's so many people talking. We have to
Right.
be the ones who are walking the talk.
Yeah.
So
Well, and
this,
that's
yeah,
leadership.
please
Oh,
go.
sorry.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I was gonna say that's what leadership
Mhm.
is demonstrating and living from that place. And leadership is a huge part of what I do. I empower leaders and help create badass leaders
Mhm.
because that's what we need.
Mm.
And we're all leaders, maybe not necessarily like out there in a like an official, quote unquote, official role, but we all are leading our own lives.
Mhm.
If we choose, we can also be led.
Yeah, certainly
Or
the Matrix would love to plug in and just take over
there are
for
lots
everybody.
of
Yeah.
ways, and there, yeah, of just like whatever, just going with whatever program or whatever's trendy or whatever. And that's a choice. And that's, we all have our places and spaces and journeys to take with it. But to really lead a life of magic, to lead a life of integrity and to be present.
Mm.
I mean, who doesn't want that? I mean, maybe not everybody does. That's certainly what I came for. And that's
Absolutely.
what I want to support others in doing and be like, you get to live your life however you want to.
Mm. Yeah,
We
so
all get to choose and might as well try and have a good time doing it because it's all, it's going to be challenging, but like even in the midst of joy, there's challenge. Even in the midst of having a really fun photo shoot, there's challenge. But it's all so amazingly just a beautiful part of the dance.
good.
If it was perfect all the time, it'd be very boring.
Yeah, well, we wouldn't have bothered
I
incarnating
wouldn't
if
have
it was going
bothered.
to be like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll just stay in the angelic realm. I'm good. Thanks. You don't have to
Right.
come to Earth if you don't
Right.
need to dance naked in front of the mirror. You can't do that in the realms. You can do that
No.
here, though.
Yeah.
I love this. And speaking of leadership, you mentioned this, Tiffani. Thank you so much for all of the wisdom you've shared. And yes, Tiffani supports leaders and helps co-create badass leadership because that is exactly what we need to go into the golden age collectively and certainly in our own lives. So I love this beautiful work that you're doing in the world, Tiffani. And I love what you brought us today with such a rich conversation about awakening and then my favorite to-do list for creating the golden age so far. Get a photo shoot, dance naked in front of the mirror, walk your talk, be in your body. Yes, yes, yes. But Tiffani, how can those who are listening, if they're desiring to go to a new place of leadership in their life, whether it's they want a promotion at their job or they want to step in as a leader in the community that they serve, or they want to be a more empowered leader in their own family, in their own relationship, in their own life, how can folks connect with you?
Yeah, I'm really easy to get in touch with. The main place to find me is on Instagram right now at embodied underscore magic, because that really is it. Let's embody our magic. So Instagram, email is also a great way. Tiffani with an I. I know we have to always spell things. Tiffani, Tiffani at embodiedmagic.org. And if you're local to Central Oregon, I think everyone here has my phone number just from the dance community. Most people know me as Puma. And so I love what I do and I love supporting others and leading in whatever way they want to. And so I think the other thing I would add to the list of creating the golden age is also make sure you have a good team and a
Mm.
support, not just family, friends, community, but we all deserve someone who is there only for our journey of expansion and
Yeah.
that level of mentorship and support, which I know I am eternally grateful for my mentors, including you, Christian. And it is an honor to be on that journey with others.
Mm. Love that you brought that in. And I think you and I were actually talking about this the other day of just the power of a neutral observer who is not attached to your storyline, who can assist you
Yes.
and who loves you unconditionally. So when we bring
Yes.
that love for those that we serve, but we're not attached to their pain stories, to their dramas, to their patterns, when we have that perspective that we can bring them, there is such a gift in that.
Yes.
I tell you tell romantic partners, family, friends, if they're trying to give you advice, you say, thank you. And I pay someone to do that who is not attached to my outcomes, who knows me from that source perspective and loves me unconditionally. Like that is such a gift to give yourself, to have that kind of mentorship and support so that
Yeah.
you can really be who you really are. Because if we just stayed connected to taking the advice from family and friends
Oh,
and
yeah.
our romantic partners, we just stay in our patterns because that's where
Yeah.
everybody's comfortable.
Yeah,
So I
not
love,
everyone is skilled at being able to hold that space. Bless our families and friends and
yes.
myself where I've been a friend and the wisdom drips we sometimes get. But there's something just so beautiful about that, and you're worth it.
Mm, yes, you
We're
are
worth it.
so
We're worth whatever the investment is. I mean, I've shared this, like that is the investment I make every month in myself, so that one I can show up better for myself, but I also get to be in better, clearer, cleaner, more expansive service. And the practice of seeing others, we can only see others as much as we allow ourselves to see ourselves.
Mm, yeah. And this, I love that we're closing with this because then guess what you get to do with your family and your friends and your lovers and your partners? You get to enjoy them. You get to
Yes.
enjoy each other. You get to celebrate life. You don't need to be giving each other advice and healing each other. That's an old wounded pattern. You have high level support for that. And then you get to just enjoy the
Right.
people in your life and love them. And when they're going through a hard time, guess what? You don't have to take their advice, or if you're a friend, family member, partner, you don't have to give advice. All you have to do is love them. Like,
Right.
how amazing is that? It's like set up so perfectly for us if we will only heed the wisdom that has come through in this podcast episode. Thank you, Tiffani. This is
You're so welcome. Thank
awesome.
you for inviting me here.
Oh my gosh, so happy you're with us. Again, everyone, if you want to reach Tiffani, you can find her on the Instagram at embodied_magic. DM her if you want to get a free set list. So she puts together killer set lists. They're incredible as part of her sacred dance journey work. So just DM her. Is that right, Tiffani? They can DM you
Yes,
for
please.
free set list. She's very responsive and she'll get you that file. And then I'm telling you, you'll have the best naked dance in front of the mirror of your life. So get that set list from her today. Thank you so much, everyone who's listening. Thank you, Tiffani. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for being on earth and being on this path of awakening and co-creating the golden age. If this episode was a benefit to you, please consider sharing it with someone you know in your swirl that is on an awakening journey. You can find more details, including how to gift in and donate to support Awakening the Podcast at sacred-spirituality.org. Click on the podcast button. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Christian Strang, and this has been Awakening the Podcast.